Welcome back, everybody, to the afternoon session of our conference on Abraham and his family. We'd like to, again, thank our hosts, our sponsors, which includes the Interpreter Foundation and Scripture Central, FAIR, and BYU Religion Department. I'm grateful for all their efforts and support. We are going to start right away with a presentation by Stephen D. Ricks. Dr. Ricks completed his BA in Ancient Greek and his MA in the Classics at Brigham Young University, and then received his PhD in Ancient Near Eastern Religions from the University of California at Berkeley, go Bears, and the Graduate Theological Union. While completing his doctoral work, he spent 2 years studying at the Hebrew University in Jerusalem. He is now a professor of Hebrew and cognate learning at BYU, where he has been a member of the faculty for more than 30 years, or almost 30 years. 44 years. Yeah, this is an old bio. So, Dr. Ricks.
It's nice to be here. My PowerPoint is actually going to be my presentation today. I hope that we get up. Okay, so here we have proper names and foreign words in the Book of Mormon. There are a total of 44 proper names and foreign words in the Book of Mormon. And I'm going to be sharing with you about 11 or so of them. So let's take a look at this question. What was Abraham's native language? Abraham said to Eliezer of Damascus, go to my country, my kindred, and take a wife for my son Isaac, suggesting that his homeland may well have been up in northern Mesopotamia. Until the latter part of the 19th century, Ur of the Chaldees was understood to be an ancient city in northern Mesopotamia, which would probably be influenced by the languages of northern Mesopotamia, Amorite, archaic, Aramaic, and so forth. I do need to go forward. Okay, in 1862, Sir Henry Rawlinson identified Ur of the Chaldees with Tel el-Mukayyar, which is west of Nasiriyah in modern Iraq. It's not very far from south and west of Baghdad, modern Baghdad. Also in 1927, Sir Leonard Woolley excavated the site and identified it as an ancient Sumerian site where the Chaldeans settled in the 9th century BC, probably not 9th, but 19th century BC anyway, very ancient. But tablets discovered at ancient Abla mention a city in Mesopotamia, and despite that, the balance of scholarly opinion tends to favor an ancient site in southern Mesopotamia as the location of Ur of the Chaldees. My tendency is an unobtrusive preference for northern Mesopotamia with the language of the languages of northern Mesopotamia, archaic, Aramaic, and Amorite. Let's continue. Sarai, the earlier name for Sarah, Abraham's wife, contains the ending ay, comparable to the aya ending in Amorite personal names. Amorite is an archaic West Semitic language related to later ancient Aramaic and Hebrew. It dates from about the 22nd, 21st centuries BC. Very, very ancient. The Amorite personal ending of Sarai suggests a west or northwest Semitic origin of the person named Sarai. Terah, Abraham's father, moved with his family to the area in northern Mesopotamia close to Haran. Abraham's family, nephews, nieces, and their descendants lived for generations thereafter in this area of northern Mesopotamia. Whether northern Mesopotamia was Abraham's native land or adopted land, it became and remained, in my estimation, it's his homeland. My view is a fairly unobtrusive preference for it, but Professor Gary Rensburg of Rutgers, who is going to be speaking remotely to us in a couple of hours, is much more, much stronger, even fiercer in his promotion of a northern Mesopotamian origin for Abraham. Allow me to read the abstract of his presentation for today, or of the Chaldees, where Kasdim in Hebrew is generally identified with the great Sumerian city of Ur in southern Iraq. And yet there is not a shred of evidence which suggests this, not in the biblical text, not in the archaeological record. By contrast, the confluence of biblical text, Jewish tradition, collateral evidence demonstrates that Abraham's birthplace is to be identified with Urfa in southern Turkey, which is an area very close probably to where he lived, and with languages very much closer to Aramaic and ultimately to Hebrew than may have been spoken in the southeastern part of Mesopotamia. Let me go on to share with you some names. First off is the name Abraham. It is mentioned throughout the book of Abraham numerous times. In the book of Abraham is his name mentioned. No fully satisfying etymology for the biblical name Abraham has been proposed, that is a Hebrew etymology for it. Kurla and Baumgartner in their Hebrew and Aramaic lexicon of the Old Testament cite the Arabic noun ruham, which means multitude, with which may be compared the passage, "Neither shall thy name any more be called Abram, but thy name shall be called Abraham, for a father of many nations, the Hebrews of Hamon Goyim, have I made thee." There is Ruham that is linked to Abraham, but Hamon, which is probably the language of the period of kings in ancient Israelite history, that has replaced it. There is no Hebrew word with the root consonants RHM that has the meaning multitude. Let's take a look at some foreign words in the Book of Mormon. We could pronounce this Nolam, but ultimately probably Olam. The Hebrew noun Nolam, eternity or eternal, translated into Roman characters following Joshua Sages's system of transliteration, which was the one that Joseph learned when he was in Kirtland, Ohio in the early 1830s, represents Olam with an ein, the ein being, that trust me on this, the ein being represented by GN, and Olam is the way that it normally is written in more recent methods of transliteration. Kohav, is a Hebrew noun that means star, translated into Roman characters again in the sages' system of transliteration that Joseph learned, represents Kohav, according to the more recent methods of transliteration. Rao Kyong, which means expanse or firmament of the heavens, transliterated into Roman characters following the sages' system of transliteration, represents Rakia, according to more recent methods of transliteration. So these words that are given in the book of Abraham, they follow the sages' method of transliteration. Pharaoh, this is something interesting, is a name or title of the king or ruler of the ancient Egyptians, which comes from the Egyptian Terah, which means great house, probably the equivalent of White House for the king, or even in Sumerian, the word Yagal, the great house, probably for the ruler in ancient Sumerian. Let's go now to some of the proper names that we find in the book of Abraham. Elkenah, the deity name Elkenah, which is given in the phrase in the technical term is apexegetical genitive, something that you could probably learn. Apexegetical means explanatory, something that you could use to amuse and amaze your friends and totally flummox your enemies. The phrase God of Elkenah, which probably means the god Elkenah, very much like city of Provo means the city Provo. It may be composed of the deity name El and the root Kana that has a secondary meaning create, used in the phrase El Konei Hashemayim Va'aretz or Va'aretz, God, the creator of heaven and earth. The personal name Elkanah may also be compared with the Phoenician name, basically the same El Konei Aretz, the God who created the earth, that appears in inscriptions. And this name borrowed into Hittite and in European language comes out as Al-Kunirsha. Jershon is another name that we find in the book of Abraham. It is from the Hebrew word meaning inheritance or place of inheritance, and it appears as the place name of a land between Haran and Canaan. As a side note, the place name Jershon is also mentioned in the Book of Mormon. And in Alma 20, this is again a digression. In Alma 27:22, we read, this land Jershon, which means place of inheritance, which we will give unto our brethren for an inheritance. Again, a striking play on the name Jershon with its underlying meaning inheritance or place of inheritance. We go to Olishem, identified with an ancient location, Ulisum or Ulishum, mentioned in an inscription dating from the era of the Akkadian king Naram-Sin, who reigned the middle of the 23rd century BC down to 2218. This particular place name may be situated with some uncertainty in modern Syria or southern Turkey, again, in the northern Mesopotamian area, where languages that probably are more closely related to Aramaic were spoken by Abraham and those with whom he lived. Shulam is described in facsimile 3, figure 5 of the Book of Abraham, as one of the king's principal waiters. And this name, Shulam, is Semitic in origin, suggesting an Asiatic migration into Egypt during Abraham's time, which is precisely what occurred. Migrations of Asiatics from the Levantine region into Egypt, having Semitic names and retaining them, took place during the late Middle Kingdom, 2000 to 1800 BC, or the second intermediate period, 1800 to 1600 BC. And the name Shulam may favorably be compared with names having the same roots, Shin Lamed Mem, as LM, in a number of ancient Semitic languages, including Old Akkadian, Old Assyrian, Old Babylonian, Middle Babylonian, Eblaite, Ugaritic, and Ancient Hebrew, and being able to see these as a Hebraist and an aspiring Semitist. It makes me so warm and fuzzy, feel so good about life. It is a wonderful thing. Further, the expression "one of the king's principal waiters" is fairly close to the Egyptian butler of the ruler, Wepedel and Heka, but in Hebrew that we find in Genesis chapter 40, verse 2, Sahamashkim, that means the chief of the cupbearers, the butlers. And so we have it. We take a look at the proper name Shineha, which is Egyptian in origin. The channel or course along which the sun travels through the heavens is expressed in ancient Egyptian pyramid texts as Merenecha and Shenecha, transliterated by the Egyptologist James Allen as a winding canal and understood metonymously as the sun. The phrase Merenecha was more commonly used in the Old Kingdom pyramid texts than Shenecha. However, Shenecha was used more widely in the coffin texts, which were composed during the Middle Kingdom period, that is 2040 to 1782 BC, an era roughly contemporary with Abraham's time. And so the reason that Shineha or Shinecha shows up is because it's contemporary with that particular period of time. Oh my goodness, I've gotten stuck. If you could, Anish Go Ondash, which is also an Egyptian name. It is quite uncertain, but it may be connected to a hypothetical Egyptian expression, Onesh Onu Taj, the great sledge on the boundary of On, or to Onesh Ka, and to Taj, the sledge of the vital force of the veil of earth. Allow me to conclude after having shown you those words and names. About 44 proper names and foreign words in the book of Abraham, of which 29 are Semitic in origin, 12 Egyptian in origin, and 3 are of either Indo-European, Indo-Hittite mixed, or uncertain origin. The names of Semitic origin are reasonably well understood. The names of Egyptian origin are somewhat less well understood. I'm getting to be an old duffer, and I'm going to be riding off into the sunset sometime in the very near future, but I have confidence that given the talent and capability of those that will be following me, and their capabilities with the language, that an understanding of the names and foreign words in the book of Abraham, including the Egyptian names, will become clearer and clearer. Thank you very much.
We're always grateful for Dr. Rix's works and proper names and some of the books you've provided for us over the years, and so thankful for having that. Thank you for reviewing those for us from the book of Abraham. On the work of John Philip Lepeau and Mitchell Dahoud on Psalm 68, verse 4 or 5 in Hebrew, preferring Shemal, or heaven, instead of Shemo, his name, and its relationship to the book of Abraham, Shemal.
Honestly, I really don't know about it, so
Okay.
any other questions that I can't answer?
Okay. All right, and then, let's see. So this one, there are those who might place the events of the Book of Mormon in the American heartland due largely to ideological beliefs. Are there ideological beliefs which might lead one to a southern Mesopotamia location over a northern one?
Honestly, I can't think of any, and as I say, Professor Rensburg is going to probably provide a stem winder of a presentation in which he's going to make a case in favor of a northern location and against a southern one. The fact is, there is no evidence, archaeological or literary, that favors southern origin. It's just a kind of personal preference of scholars who themselves may reflect a kind of herd mentality. So,
yeah, I mean, I think we could say that Chaldeans do show up in southern Mesopotamia, but later, right? And so I think what happened is we see them down there later, and then they projected it backwards to say that's where they've always been. But what we're finding is they actually had an origin in northern and migrated.
Either that, or there were some that migrated and some that remained there.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, that's all the questions we have. So thank you.